The next archetype we're taking a look at today is another dual monsters archetype. This one is also released in the same set as the fairy tale archetype, but it's not as bad as them, and I like them a lot aesthetically, and I'm kind of glad they released them almost a decade later. So yeah, they're the Valkyries, used by Siegfried, Leon's older brother, and yeah, they received pretty much all of their cards from the enemy and got a few new ones as well. Now, this is actually kind of a complicated part for me, because most of these Valkyrie names, parts of names actually, are in German, and as you probably might know already from watching my videos on the channel, I am horrible with German and I have no clue to pronouncing some of these things. So yeah, first up we have this Valkyrie right here, and for convenience sake I'll be calling her Valkyrie Lolly. She's a level 1 fairy with the same stats for some reason as Dragon Matrix from the previous episode. But anyway, if this card is special summoned, you can special summon one Valkyrie monster from your deck except this Valkyrie Lolly. During your main phase, you can send the top 2 cards of your opponent's deck to the graveyard. You can only use each effect of Valkyrie Lolly once per turn. So yeah, why is it specially on emphasis on the special summon? Well, most Valkyries have their effects triggered by being special summoned, and they revolve around a single spell card to do so. But anyway, since this is also a level 1 with an impressive 2k wall, it's also summonable by 1 for 1, which is a decent tech choice in this deck. And sending top 2 cards to the graveyard might be a decent milling option if you decide to build a Valkyrie mill deck for some reason, even though they have a gimmick that does way better for a bit more setup. We'll get into that later. As for this, 2 should be perfectly fine, but you can go wrong with 3, since, you know, 1 for 1 is still limited and all. Anyway, we have their next Valkyrie, the level 3 Valkyrie, how should we call you? Well, apparently, well, as you all can see, she really resembles Lucy Heartfilia, so we're gonna be calling her Valkyrie Lucy from now on. Like I said, level 3 fairy, 1400 attack and defense, and during your main phase you can excavate the top cards of your deck equal to the number of other Valkyrie monsters you control, and if you do, add 1 excavated normal spell or trap to your hand. Also send the remaining cards to the graveyard. Otherwise, shuffle all excavated cards into the deck. When this card is destroyed by battle and sent to the graveyard, you can special summon 1 Valkyrie monster from your deck, and you can only use each effect of Valkyrie Lucy once per turn. So yeah, actually the first effect is a better Kuri Bandit, since if you don't excavate any normal spell or traps, also Kuri Bandit also works on spells as opposed to its anime version, while this thing works on any spell and traps. Yeah, another thing, this also works on any spell and traps, so you can search out Dark Hole, Raigeki, anything you like. Royal Decree, Vanities, oh sorry, Vanities is banned. But anyway, yeah, this is a better version of Kuri Bandit, definitely, and its its floating effect is actually very good since it summons any Valkyrie from the deck. So yeah, but each effect can only be used once per turn. So yeah, running 3 of these is always desired. So yeah, and it's even summonable by Nova Summoner and Shining Angel if you want to, so it's very nice card indeed. And next one we have the level 4 Valkyrie. Okay, this one resembles Meredy from Fairy Tail, and yes, be forewarned, a lot of these resemble Fairy Tail characters. Anyway, the Valkyrie Meredy is a level 4, which when it's normal or special summoned, you can add any Valkyrie card from your deck to your hand except Valkyrie Meredy, and you can only use each effect once per turn, and this card gains 200 attack for each of your opponent's banished monsters. Yes, as you see in the last part of the effect, this archetype has a small banishing engine available. So but anyway, back to its first effects. Yeah, it adds any archetype thing to hand upon being normal or special summon, which makes it immediately desirable to run at 3 at all times, and it's even summonable like the previous one by Nova Summoner and Shining Angels, which gets it even more chance to search out archetypal stuff. And yeah, its original anime effect was the second effect, although it was even worse than it, as it gains only 100 attack for each banished card. So yeah, this one is good. The next one is this Valkyrie, which resembles a bit more plot heavy Melody, if you know what I'm saying. And yeah, this one's a level 5, and if this card is summoned, you can target one monster your opponent controls, destroy it, and after damage calculation with this card battled, you can target one continuous spell in your graveyard, add it to your hand. You can only use each effect once per turn. And yeah, this card works on any summon, being it normal or special summon, or flip summon. That's my phone, shut up. Anyway, yeah, this effect is primarily used in conjunction with their normal spell, which they revolve on. And you might think, why the continuous spell limitation? We'll get to that, because they have quite a few continuous spells, all which work in tandem with each other. So yeah, as for this itself, Stormfort is limited, and yeah, the spell card, summoning it with the spell card is not very reliable most of the time, so 2 should be perfectly fine. Well, 2 max actually. Alright, next up is this Valkyrie, very roughly resembling Princess Hisui from Fairy Tail. And yeah, this one is a level 6 with a bit higher defense than the previous one, and if this card is specifically special summoned from your hand by a spell effect, you can target one Mischief of the Time Goddess in your graveyard, add it to your hand. If you control a Valkyrie monster other than this Valkyrie quick effect, you can banish one monster from your opponent's graveyard. Then this card's attack becomes equal to the banished monster's original attack until the end of this turn. You can only use each effect of this Valkyrie once per turn. Valkyrie Hisui, whatever. Anyway, this card's effect was meant to be used in conjunction with the previous one's effect, and yes, you probably heard it definitely in this card's effect. Mischief of the Time Goddess, YCS Denver. We'll get to that. Anyway, this effect is, yeah, it works specifically on special summoning, meaning you'll have to use the spell card most of the time to get this thing onto the field. Not very reliable method of summoning most of the time, but it's pretty damn good, as it can copy any attack of the monster it banishes upon it being destroyed by the previous Valkyrie. So yeah, this is actually also a very nice card. So you run this thing in many copies as you run the previous one, the Time Skip Melody. If you run Time Skip Melody at 2, you run this thing at 2 as well. Anyway, finally a monster I can properly pronounce and call. Fortune Chariot, a level 6 Union monster. Yeah, Jesus, I'm getting some Soitsu vibes from this. But anyway, this thing is treated as a Valkyrie card, no shit. And once per turn, it has the standard Union effect, except it is limited to a fairy monster. And yeah, then we have the original effect. The equipped monster can attack directly, but when it does, using its effect, the damage inflicted to your opponent is halved. Yeah, this is actually a directly adapted from the anime, this part of the effect, along with the... But I guess the only original thing about this effect is that it's always treated as a Valkyrie card, which makes it searchable. But this is not worth running, really. I mean, if you want to attack directly with attack damage being held, then just run Amethyst Cat or Cyberdark Claw? No, that's not Cyberdark Edge, that's right, I was trying to remember it. It's from the older support, so yeah. If you run this at 1 max, goodbye. And finally we have their boss monster, Valkyrie Brunhilde. Yeah, I can pronounce this correctly because I know the religion of Brunhilde myself. This is a level 7 fairy with 1800 attack and 2000 defense. I mean, well, anyway, let's get into the effect. It's unaffected by spell cards, by your opponent's spell cards, that is, and gains 500 attack for each monster your opponent controls. When an opponent's monster declares an attack, you can have this card lose exactly 1000 defense, and if you do, Valkyrie monsters you cannot be destroyed by battle this turn. I mean, if you use something to boost its defense, it can prevent more battle destruction, but the protection by spell cards is actually very nice. Arguably the best part about this effect, but I would have preferred if it protected other Valkyries with this effect as well, since you know you're not going to get by just having one monster. And yeah, this as for this card's battle boost effect, you're mostly relying to clear your opponent's field before you even go into the battle phase, so yeah, it's not very productive in that sort of terms, but it's also not that bad either. Usually you don't leave this thing out when building a Valkyrie deck, and you usually run it at 2 or 3. Alright, next up we have the spell card that the entire archetype is based around. The normal spell, Ride of the Valkyries. Special summon any number of Valkyrie monsters with different names from your hand. If special summoned 3 or more monsters with this effect, you take no battle damage until the end of the next turn. During the end phase of the turn you activated this card, shuffle all monsters you control into the deck. You can banish this card from your graveyard to add 1 Mischief of the Time Goddess from your deck to your hand, and you can only use this effect of Ride of the Valkyries once per turn. So yeah, basically you need to work your ass on getting Valkyries you want to summon to the hand first, meaning you have to heavily rely on Lolly and Lucy for the effect to work. So that's why I earlier said that this effect is a bit unreliable, and not to mention that you need to shuffle all monsters, not just Valkyrie monsters, into the deck during the end phase. However, if you somehow manage to summon 3 Valkyries at the time, you're safe from battle damage this turn. And yeah, but you're most likely gonna use those Valkyries for link summoning or any extra deck summon method, so you don't have to use the shuffle effect. Or is it mandatory? I'm not sure. I'm probably actually, yeah, the shuffle effect is actually mandatory, so womp womp there. But anyway, you usually run this at 3 because you need to most of the time, so yeah, 3 at all times. The next 3 cards, I'm actually gonna read their effects one after another, because they're obviously meant to be used in tandem with one another. First up we have Goddess SKULD'S Oracle. All of them are continuous spell cards, mind you, and when this card is activated, if all monsters you control are Valkyrie monsters, minimum 1, you can add 1 Goddess VERDANDE'S Guidance from your deck to your hand. Once per turn, during your main phase, you can look at the top 3 cards of your opponent's deck, and if you do, place them on top of their deck in any order. And for some reason you cannot normal or special summon monsters for the rest of the turn except fairy monsters, and you can only activate 1 Goddess SKULD'S Oracle per turn. Then we have VERDANDE'S Guidance, which allows you to declare the card type, monster, spell, or trap from the top of your deck. And if you're correct, the opponent places them on the field face down. But if you're not correct, it gets added to their hand, and you can only activate this effect once per turn. And if all monsters you control are Valkyrie minimum 1, you can add 1 Goddess Earth's Verdict from your deck to your hand. And then we have Goddess Earth's Verdict, their final continuous spell, which allows you to target Valkyrie monsters you control, which prevents your opponent from targeting Valkyrie monsters you control with card effects, and also they cannot be destroyed by your opponent's card effects. And once per turn, you can declare 1 card name, then target 1 set card your opponent controls, and if it was the card you declared, it gets banished. Otherwise, you banish 1 card you control. Alright, so we have a lot to take in here. So these 3 are the famous anime combination that Siegfried used to defeat Janucci in his duel. He even used it on Kaiba slightly, so yeah. A little slow banished engine which can boost a Valkyrie pre-time skip Meredy by a significant amount if you manage to pull it off on a consistent basis. even though you need to have a proper lockdown set up before even attempting to pull this off on a frequent basis, because you cannot normal or special summon monsters except fairy type monsters during the turn you activate this effect, mind you. But I really like the protection effect that Goddess Earth's Verdict gives to your monsters. Yeah, it's very impressive. No targeting and no destruction by card effects, which is very nice. Anyway, you usually run more at least 2 copies of each, so yeah, that is pretty much how you do things. But screw that, I know what you came here for. We mentioned it a couple of times in the video as well. YCS Denver, anyone, ladies and gentlemen, trip down memory lane. It's the all-time favorite Mischief of the Time Goddess. A quick play spell depicting Goddess Skuld again, yeah. And neither player can activate cards or effects in response to this card's activation. Cannot be activated as a chain link 2 or higher. At the end of the battle phase, if all monsters you control are Valkyrie monsters minimum 1, send this card to the graveyard. Also, immediately after this effect resolves, skip to the battle phase of your next turn. If you do, you cannot activate Mischief of the Time Goddess until the end of that turn. So yeah, this is actually a pretty strong card, no question about it. So imagine this: you massacre your opponent with your massive Valkyrie setup. You manage to get on with the Rite of the Valkyries. Rite of the Valkyries in turn searches out this card very easily. Then you activate this card to make this massacre again, and if you actually pull this effect off, you actually get past the effect where it's required to shuffle all monsters you control into the deck, meaning you can use the monsters to spam some extra deck boards onto the field. And yeah, the possibilities of this card are very endless. This card can actually win you the game if you know how to play it. However, I did mention YCS Denver more than once, so yeah. The scandal that occurred in YCS Denver is that apparently, I'm not even sure myself, I only heard like tips and tops of stories from various people, but apparently a guy made an Orica of Mischief of the Time Goddess. Well, it was still an anime exclusive card and used it in a tournament, which is very funny to me because I used to make a lot of Oricas of anime only cards and that were just like insanely powerful and just troll my friends into thinking that the card actually exists and that it's unbeatable. Yeah, it's memories, eh? Well, anyway, yeah. The card is out now. You can have as much fun as you want to, even though they limited it to being a Valkyrie exclusive support card. And while in the anime it was a generic card, which made it even more powerful. But anyway, yeah, you run this thing at 3 at all times. It's funny as shit and it gets job done. Moving on. Your final spell card is Final Light. Pay life points multiples of 1000. Then target Valkyrie monsters in your graveyard with a different name of every 1000 life points you paid and special summon them. Then your opponent can special summon monsters with 2000 attack or less from their graveyard up to the number of monsters special summoned by this effect, and you can only activate 1 Final Light per turn. And this is actually very rare to see. An archetypal soul charge, well, other than rekindling, this is the only archetypal soul charge in the game. Even though rekindling is a lot better since it's not limited to its own archetype, that being flame will, and it actually works on any fire monster that has 200 defense, which is most of them, by the way. And yeah, as for this, your opponent is most likely not going to be able to summon any number of monsters, the same number of monsters as you when you activate this thing's effect. So yeah, running 2 of these is perfectly fine since Soul Charge is banned, even though I would prefer Soul Charge over this since this card has quite a few restrictions. For one, you have to pick Valkyries that have different names. Then you have to then you can only activate 1 per turn. How shocking. And yeah, your opponent gets to summon some monsters as well, which is not very impressive. Yeah, Infernal Reckless Summon also has restrictions similar to that, but it's you have to give and take sometimes, am I right? And their final card is the normal trap Apple of Enlightenment. When I saw this card, I was like, did they really adapt its anime effect? Or yeah, let's get into it. Target cards cards in your opponent's graveyard up to the number of Valkyrie monsters you control, banish them. If this set card in its owner's control has left the field because of an opponent's effect and is now in the graveyard or banished, you can draw cards equal to the number of Valkyrie monsters you control +1. Yeah, I'm gonna outright say it, run 3 at all times, because wanna hear the anime effect if you're not aware? Its anime effect was the second effect, that being if it's removed from the field, you only draw 1 card. I shit you not, only 1 card is drawn. However, this time around it's perform a Pellery casting, which is, yeah, slightly more specific, but because you need to have monsters you control, but it's actually better because you don't have to shuffle anything back, you just draw cards. So if you have like 5 Valkyries, you draw 6 cards. Damn. And yeah, if you activate its active effect as opposed to its passive effect, which is the second effect, you get the most relevant way of banishing your opponent's stuff from the graveyard. And yeah, this is a very powerful card, so I would advise running 3 at all times. Alright, so we're done with Valkyries, and now it's time for the grading. Consistency is mostly revolving around Valkyrie Lucy and Valkyrie Lolly for it to work. All of them are summonable. Well, Lolly is summonable by 1 for 1, and both are summonable by Nova Summoner and Shining Angel. Sengen can search out most of them. Lolly and Lucy are searchable by Sengen. So yeah, consistency is not awful, but it's certainly not the best, so I'll give it a 2 out of 3. Now, power is a very questionable thing to grade, because monsters they control, monsters they have, neither of them have more than 2000 attack. So the power output could be a little too finicky for my liking most of the time. So I'm in a dilemma whether to give them a 1 out of 3 or 2 out of 3. So if they manage to clear the field in the time for their effect, with their powerful removal effects, they can produce some nasty power output, but that does not happen all the time. So yeah, I'm gonna give them a 1 out of 3 there. Now, comeback ability is interesting because they can come back. They have outs to a lot of things. So even though they do not usually present set outs most efficiently most of the time, but yeah, they can come back from relatively anything, so it would be generous and give them a 2 out of 3. Protection is not very strong, even though Earth's Verdict can protect them most of the time, even if you manage to search it out. So yeah, but it's usually around 2 copies, and Earth's Verdict is the least searchable card in the archetype. So yeah, I'm gonna give him a 1 out of 3 in protection. Now, versatility, I'm gonna give him also a 2 out of 3, because they have lots of potential deck builds. You can revolve them around. You can make a banish build. You can make a link spam deck from these things, which can be very fun to pull off sometimes. And they can make a pure powerhouse build, Christia build, Valhalla build, anything is possible when they are light fairy type monsters. Yeah, Honest can also be a decent tech choice for them, which can also give a power output for the a bit of a higher rating. But yeah, it's a little fun deck for experimentation. Would I like to see more of them? Well, absolutely. So yeah, sorry for the language there, but anyway, I would definitely love to see more of them, because their aesthetics are very pleasing and very nice, and I like them in the show, I like them now. And yeah, next to Fortune Ladies and Magician Girls, they're like one of my favorite archetypes of all time. Time Lords are even included. So yeah, this is pretty much it for this episode. Thank you all so much for watching. Stay tuned for more videos, walkthroughs, and updates. Comment, like, and subscribe. And as usual, I'll upload the next vid whenever I can. See you all. Have a good day and peace.